Good morning. Spring has sprung. We sprung forward today, yeah? I'm ready. I'm so sick of this cold weather. I am ready. Thank you for having me here. It's always a blessing to be here at Unity. I never take it for granted that you ever invite me back. And we never take it for granted that you choose to show up here on Sunday mornings. You are a blessing, and thank you for being here. As is my practice, I have something to share with you here that is in my life. It's what I always do. I come here and I share with you whatever I'm dealing with in my life. And so that's what I want to do this morning. And it's something I think I've touched on in bits and pieces a little bit, maybe in other messages that I've given here. But this morning I want to talk about it in a fuller way. And so as I'm sharing from my life and my family, if you hear something that works for you or that resonates with you, just take it. Take it and bring it into your life in whatever way that will work. So what I've been doing is swirling around actually a handful of passages in the New Testament, and I want to share some of those passages with you quickly. One is from 2 Peter. God has given us his very great and precious promises so that through them you may participate in the divine nature and escape the corruption in the world caused by evil desires. The next one is from 1 John chapter 2. Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For everything in the world, the cravings of sinful man, the lust of his eyes, and the boasting of what he has and does comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but the man who does the will of God lives forever. Romans 12. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is. God's good, perfect, and pleasing will. And then the last one. I think this is probably my favorite one. James 1. Pure and undefiled religion before God is this: to care for orphans and widows in their trouble, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. And that's where I got the message title. When they called me earlier this week and said, we need a title, I was reading this passage, and this is from the King James, and it's King James language. Unspotted from, who says unspotted anymore? But it's such a great word, unspotted from the world, unstained, uncorrupted, undefiled by the world. So that's our title passage, and it gets to the theme that's in these passages about the world, the influence of the world. What is that? What is the world? What is its influence? What does that even mean? And what does it mean to be stained or corrupted, or to be unstained or unspotted from the world? So that's kind of what I've been brooding about. Now, some of you just left your body and you just had a boomerang in your heart because you've heard these passages before and you've been beaten over the head with them from traditional religion. And unfortunately, and I totally understand that reaction, because unfortunately traditional religion uses these passages to set up a really rigid kind of dualism that often ends up being judgy and self-righteous and harsh and just not a good thing. It's a rigid dualism where there's God and the devil. There's the good and the evil. There's the spirit and there's the flesh. There's heaven, and then there's the earth. And everything on this side is just bad and wrong and awful. And you hear the language, fallen and sinful and all that. And so the world ends up being, typically in this traditional view, the world often gets equated with the physical world, particularly like the material part of our own bodies. So anything connected to the physical world and anything that would be enjoyable about it, and anything connected to our bodies and anything would be enjoyable about them, food, entertainment, sexuality, any of that, bad, bad, bad. And then the big dualism that emerges from that is there's good people and bad people. So it ends up just really being a way to divide people, and it's just awful. And that is not what I feel like these passages really have to give to us. And that's not what's drawn me to them. And that's not the message I have for you this morning that I'm sharing from my life. So if you have that sort of negative reaction to those passages as I read them, try to kind of stay here for a little bit. Try to kind of hang in with me and see if this can be something meaningful. Because the thing is, as problematic as these interpretations are, I think there's some truth in these passages. And I even think there's a grain or two of truth in the traditional interpretation. We just have to dig it out and make sure we don't get all the other stuff with it. My partner, Nisha, and I, we've been talking a lot about these issues in our lives for a while now, for the last few years, in our individual lives and in our life as a family. And I think what I've come to, is that the world, so defined, is not some physical place, it's not our body, it's not anything like that, it's not a group of people, it's not anything like that. It's actually something that we create. It's a human product. It's something we create out here in society, and we create it from within ourselves. It's an attitude. It's an approach to life. It's a culture. It's a way of being. It's a set of values and commitments, a set of goals or ambitions. It's a way of being. And I think it's mostly at odds with an authentic spiritual path, what Scripture calls the godly path, or the righteous or godly path. Now, in these passages, notice how often the terms desire and mind arise in these passages. Corruption in the world caused by evil desires. The world and its desires pass away. The cravings of the worldly person that be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So desires and mind, the desires of the mind, very much at the heart of many, many spiritual teachings across the world's religions. Many of the great teachers have spent a lot of time talking about this. Perhaps, I think, one of the most sophisticated treatments of it comes from Siddhartha Gautama, the historical Buddha. Buddha's teaching in the Four Noble Truths really centers in and focuses on the machinations of desire and the mind. Basically, what he says in those truths is that all of our suffering in life, our misery, not the physical stuff that happens, but the suffering, the sort of mental existential suffering that comes in life, it comes because of unenlightened or ignorant desiring in our minds. And the way to fix that, the way to eliminate suffering, is to enlighten our desire. And so all of the practices in Buddhism, all the meditation, the ritual, all the stuff, and indeed all of them in most of the spiritual traditions, is designed to do just that, to enlighten our desires, enlighten our mind, in the language of this scripture, transform our minds, renew our minds away from those ignorant cravings, those unenlightened desires. So what would be some examples, at least in the Buddha's examples, of ignorant desire, unenlightened desire? Well, any situation in which we desire something to be other than it is, or we desire it to provide for us something it is not designed to provide. We want something to be other than it is. Think of people, too. And we want them to provide for us things they are not designed to provide. For example, we all want to live forever. We don't want to ever die. We will die. We won't live here forever. We all want to be young and vibrant. We really want our bodies to stay young and vibrant and tight and firm. They won't. I said it in the first service, I'll say it now. Gravity's not just a good idea, it's the law. What once was up will fall down. This is the way of it. When things are good, we want them to stay the same. How many of you wrote in your yearbooks when you were in school, stay the same, you're so sweet, stay the same? Nothing's going to stay the same. Relationships will not stay the same. Everything changes, but we want them to stay the same. Stay the same. We want things to provide for us, things that they're not designed to provide. Mostly we want happiness. We want ultimate happiness, permanent, lasting, ultimate happiness from things and from people. We say to our big house, make me happy. I need a bigger house. It'll make me happy. My car, my money, I'll be happy when I make my first million, we say. I'll be happy when I get that spouse, that soulmate. And then when we get them, we're like, make me happy. I'll be happy when I can get rid of this spouse. If I could just have children, that would complete my life. And then like 10 years later, if I can just get these kids out of the house, then I'll be happy. If they could just pay for themselves, I'll be happy. I'll be happy if I can lose 40 pounds. I'll be happy, whatever. Fill in the blank. The point is not that these things or changes couldn't make a difference in our lives and make things easier, and of course they can. They can do that. The point is that our ignorant desiring and craving will never, ever, 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 ever be satisfied by those things. Why? It's not in their nature. It is not in the nature of impermanent things to provide permanent happiness. Even if they wanted to, even if somebody wants to make you happy, they cannot. But our mind wants them to. Our desire wants it to. We want it to. And so our mind tells us it can, they can. And then in doing so, it puts a ring in our nose and it drags us through life at the end of a chain. And that's the misery, that's the suffering that the Buddha talked about. Now, so if you're like me, it's real easy to take a teaching like this and just let it stay theoretical, philosophical, abstract, esoteric. You sort of squint your eyes and you're like, yeah, that's really true. And then you just run on about your business and it doesn't ever really apply in your life. And I've spent a lot of years in my life doing that because I'm Dr. Jill and I've been a professor and I've been really philosophical all these years about it. So it's only, though, been in the last number of years that I've started to try to really bring these teachings into my life and see how they actually work and practice them. And so for me, I have to find things really concrete and specific. I've got to make it very concrete in my life. And so I have to ask, what constitutes the world in my life, where I live, in 21st century America, in Houston, Texas? What's the pattern of the world that the scripture is telling me not to be conformed to? What is that in my everyday life and in our everyday life here in this town? What are the corrupting, staining aspects of life as we live it every day in our world and in our society? What do I need to move away from in my life if I want to stay unspotted from the world, and if I want to stay on an authentic path for my own growth, spiritual or otherwise? What are my desires and cravings that I need to renew and transform in order to enjoy the fruits of the spiritual path? Well, for me, and this is just me, so if you see yourself in this, by all means join me, but this is just my own sharing. For me, the world shows up in about 3 major areas. The first one is the world of appearances. The concern for how we appear to other people, how we look to other people. the impressions that we give to other people. Some might call this keeping up with the Joneses. If your last name is Jones, I apologize. Whatever, think about it. What's the defining image of success in America? Since I have it handy right here. I didn't this morning. What's the defining image? Thin, nice skin tone, nice clothes, nice car, nice house, certain amount of money with some discretionary income so you can buy elegant food. You know it, right? We see it everywhere. It's plastered on every billboard, every ad, everything, every magazine. It's what it is. And if we're not careful, we can lose ourselves in this. Not because the things in themselves are a problem. They're not. There's nothing wrong with money and wealth and health and good looks and clothes. There's absolutely nothing wrong with those things. They are inherently just fine. It's what our mind does with them. That's where the problem is. And that's where I will get hooked. There's a time in my life, I don't know, about 8-10 years ago, I was enjoying a pretty good level of success, more than I'd ever had in my life, more than I really ever thought I would have in my life. Financially and otherwise, I was doing very well. Things were just really clicking for me in my life. And I got hooked by this thing that we have out in our culture. And I started setting measures for myself and for my achievements according to material goals. Achieving a certain amount of money or a certain amount of material things or perks or whatever they were. And even as I started meeting those goals, I noticed that I just kind of felt icky. It wasn't so much icky. I just felt like my joy was kind of dissipating. And things weren't as pleasing to me. I didn't feel as happy. Things weren't as meaningful to me. It's like, I don't know, it's like something was draining out of me. I can't really put my finger on it. But eventually, I realized what had happened, that I had gotten hooked by this concern for appearances and by appearing to meet the standards of success that are out in the world. And so I had to unhook myself from it. And the concrete way that I do that's been really helpful to me, it's very concrete. Some of you know, I don't see it, but I drive a big red truck. And when I've had that truck about 10 years, and when I first bought it, maybe in the first year or so, the windshield got cracked. And so there's this long crack. I mean, it's not like this, it's this. It's a big old V8. I've got a big windshield, right? And so it's this big crack, and over the years, it's spread out into this really beautiful pattern of a cracked windshield. Now, initially, I didn't get it fixed because I just was busy and I didn't have time and it wasn't a priority. But then after I really started focusing on this thing about appearances, I made a choice that I was never going to fix that windshield. I was going to leave it. And it's been 8 years now I've had that cracked windshield. I can see perfectly fine through it to drive. It passes inspection. But it's cracked. And over the years, the mirrors on the side have gotten busted a little bit. I haven't fixed them. I ran into a pole out on my hunting lease, so there's a gash on the back fender. I didn't fix that. I think I hit a log and the grill broke out, so I didn't fix that either. Now I have the money to fix all these things. Insurance or my bank account will fix these things, but I've made a choice not to fix them. And sometimes I even choose to valet park this thing. Just precisely to train myself not to care about appearances. Most recently, I was at an event at River Oaks Country Club, and I just pulled right up into that circle drive, and I valet parked that big thing. You got to do what you got to do, right, to unhook yourself. This is just a very concrete daily thing. I drive 20,000 miles a year. This is Houston. We drive. And so I'm in my truck every day. And every day I look through that cracked windshield, it's a reminder to me, don't get hooked by this. This is the world. This is the world wanting you to care about this, and it doesn't matter. And it is in opposition to full, authentic spiritual growth. So, Try that on if it fits you. The other big world for me, a second one, is what I have a term for it, the world of snark. Do you know this term, snarky, being snarky? I couldn't really come up with another word for it. It's kind of a buzzword now, but it's just, if you've noticed, if you spend any time on social media, or if you watch talk radio, if you watch talk television or listen to talk radio, or you notice that there's just kind of an edge to the conversations that we have now. You hear people talk about the lack of civility, the loss of civility in conversation. It just seems like in our culture, it's so easy for us now to just get riled up and get ugly with people and call people out and call them names on Facebook and just do a version of road rage except online. And just cut people off and just post videos where people are slamming people and cutting people down and mocking and being sarcastic and cynical. That's the world of snark. I can so easily get hooked in that. You know, when I come here to Unity, I clean up real well and I look all love and peace and joy and everything. But you ask Cindy Wigglesworth. Cindy Wigglesworth is one of my dearest friends, and she will tell you that it just takes that long for me to get an edge and a harshness about me that is not good. It's not good. It's just part of my personality. I'm a little bit edgy, and I'm rough around the edges sometimes in ways I'm not even conscious of. And I don't tend to back away from fights or arguments. In fact, I tend to lean into them. Am I right? Yes, I'm right. I'm right. God bless Cindy. She loves me no matter what. Now, this is something I've worked on in my life, but I've had to really get rigorous with myself. And it's one of the reasons why I don't watch television anymore. For me, TV is the mainlining of that snark culture into my home and into my family. For you, it may not be that, but for me, it was. And so I had to cut it out. And more recently, I've put one of those timers on my laptop, and I only do 15 minutes a day on Facebook. And I'm an active Facebook user. I love that technology. It's a way for me to stay in touch with people that I love and my family, and we're all over the world. And I love that technology, and it can become an avenue of snark and bitterness and hatred and anger and hostility in a heartbeat if I let it. If I let it. And that's not who I say I want to be. Who I say I want to be is someone who's loving and compassionate and generous and gracious and patient. Those are the classic spiritual values. But the snark won't get us there. Here we see that opposition. So that's a big world for me, the world of snark. I have to really be mindful of that or I'll get hooked in a heartbeat. The big one is the world of noise. Noise. And here I'm not only talking about physical noise, but here I'm talking about the world of distractions and busyness that really have become central to the value system that we have in our culture. You know, when we live and work in a city like Houston, which I love our city, I love its energy and its vitality and its activity and its can-do spirit. When we live in a town like Houston, we are never more than a click, an alert on our phone, a text, a screenshot away, a ding on our calendar. We're never more than that away from anybody. Our family, our friends, our clients, anybody who happens to have our information. And we can really live chained to our to-do lists, our calendar, our schedule. Some of you are nodding, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, we're busy. We've got to make livings. We do things. We got to do things for work. A lot of us love what we do, and we love the activities that we're in. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about busy for its own sake. Being busy because somehow it's a virtue to be busy. Allegedly. Says the world. Busy because The world has said we have to conform to a pattern that says if we sit for more than a few minutes without being productive, something is wrong with us. If we just sit and stare off and just listen to the birds and look at the sky and feel the grass underneath us, we're not being productive. You got to be busy. What are you doing? What are you doing? You got to be busy. I'm talking about the busyness that has us use work or some other excuse to keep ourselves so distracted and so busy that we don't have the mental or emotional space to engage with what really matters in our lives. Whatever we've said that is, whether it's our family, our marriage, our kids, our health, whatever it is that we've said is important to us. You know, if Nishta, my partner, asked me a question about something important in our lives, and my response to her is, I don't know, I'm too busy, I haven't even had time to think about it. I'm lost. I know I'm lost in the world. I have become too busy. I've overscheduled myself. I've filled my life with too much stuff, too many things, I gotta be here, I gotta be there, I gotta do this, I gotta get this done, too many deadlines. You know, my life is not my own. It belongs to Nishta, at least partially. I'm in relationship with her. It belongs to our son. He didn't have a choice about which family he came to. He just showed up in the world. And I have a response. My life belongs to him. And he deserves, Nishta deserves, everyone, Cindy, everyone in my family, my friends, deserves for me to be the kind of person that's not so busy and so distracted that I can't sit and listen to them. Tell me your story. And just be present and listen. Not so busy that I can't share authentically from my heart because I don't even know what its contents are. I haven't made the time to reflect. Some of you are nodding, you know what I'm talking about. It's a seduction. It's just the fire hose of life. You know, there's a reason why Buddha had to basically leave his regular life in order to go off and find enlightenment. There's a reason why Jesus, in the midst of his ministry, routinely left the crowds and even left his disciples and went out into the desert to be by himself and just pray and think and meditate and just be alone. And even when he was out there, what did the devil or the evil one, the metaphor, tempt him with? Worldly success, wealth, power, and glory. The fruits of the Spirit they cannot emerge in a life that is chocked full of the weeds of distraction and busyness. They just can't compete with it. James tells us that true religion is taking care of orphans and widows and keeping ourselves unspotted from the world. And I think, why should we do this? Why should we be unspotted? I think, bottom line is because it's just misery if we don't. We're just miserable. Life is miserable if we're stained by the worldly culture, because basically what that amounts to is a life that is at the mercy of the whims of our ignorant craving and our mental machinations, what the Buddhists call monkey mind. So, this is where I'm at. And so this may be something for you. If you've been struggling with finding a purpose or an intention or a focus for your life, if things feel like they're kind of slipping through your fingers and you can't really get settled and you can't focus and you're just kind of flitting around, if things are just not holding water for you in your life for any length of time, if you find that you can't really sit for more than about 5 or 10 minutes without getting anxious or feeling guilty, just sit and do nothing without anxiety or guilt creeping in, if it's been more than about a week since you've had a a really substantial, meaningful conversation with someone you love in your life or anyone at all? If you find yourself basically on the edge of rage and sarcasm all the time, just sort of garden variety irritable all the time, if you meet yourself coming and going and your hair's on fire, these are all symptoms of a life that has become stained in some way by our world. Consider if maybe that's happened for you. I don't know. You would be the authority on that. But take a look in your life. And if that's the case, I invite you to pull yourself out of it. Do whatever you need to do. Jesus tells the rich young ruler, sell everything you have and give it to the poor. That's pretty extreme. You may not need to go that far, but that's what he needed to do in order to unchain himself from the wealth craving, the attachment to wealth. Turn off the television, get off Facebook, unsubscribe from stuff, take a leave, move, not the drug a leave, take a leave from your work. Do what you need to do. Unplug from the matrix. That's what it is. Look, it'll be hard at first for a number of reasons. One is because it's very countercultural. Other people are not doing this. So if you're going to take yourself out of the world, you're going to be countercultural and you're going to upset some people. The second thing is that it's sometimes really painful because a lot of times we deliberately keep ourselves running and spinning plates so we don't have to be with ourselves. So we don't have to just be with ourselves and confront our lives and deal with the stuff that's ours to deal with. So it's an avoidance mechanism. But do it. It is worth it. Find a way to cut yourself loose and give yourself the room to let your own dust settle. And when it settles, you'll see something you maybe didn't see before. You'll discern something in your spirit deep down that you didn't discern before. It may be a purpose or a vocation or a calling. You'll hear something you weren't able to hear before through the noise. That still, small voice that is the voice of the divine within you. Unlimited joy and freedom are available to us when we choose to remain unspotted from the world and to stay on an authentic spiritual path. Do it. Do it for the world, to make a difference in the world. Do it for your family. Do it for yourself. Because as Reverend Mindy was saying in the meditation, you deserve it. You are worthy. You were born to be free. Amen? Amen. Amen.